Hey guys, JK Wargames, and today we're going to review the Battle of Britain by Richard Borg and the Plastic Soldier Company. Now I have to say massive thanks to the Plastic Soldier Company for sending this to the channel for review. So the Battle of Britain is a two-player game, and one side is going to play the Germans and the other's the British, and the Germans are going to attempt to bomb cities, airfields, landmarks, radar, etc. and the role of the British is to stop them. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a little playthrough. I'll show you the components and then I'll wrap up with my final thoughts. So before we start though, I have to say the artwork on this box is out of this world. It's fantastic. I'm a massive Battle of Britain fanatic, so this is right up my alley. Right, so let's get on with the review. Okay, so here's the map you get in the game, and it's absolutely massive. I can't even fit it in the frame. Obviously it shows Britain and the English Channel, the North Sea, France, Norway and the Irish Sea. And the German player is going to have planes pushing into Britain, and Britain's obviously going to try and defend it. So you can see on the board you have these squares. So planes move squares. And if I just tilt this down a bit, you have a turn track down here that goes up to 4, because there's 4 turns in the game, and there's a Battle of Britain logo there. So a nice big playing board. I think it looks fantastic. So next I'll show you the group boards for the British. So here we have the group boards. Now you get a total of 4 groups. You have 10 group, 11 group, 12 group and 13 group. And on these tracks here you have your flights. So you have 3 cards that will be put in each flight, A, B and C, and you'll have the rest of the squadron in the combat ready, and then any damage fighters go into this damage box. And that's the same for all the British. So nice and simple. You can see everything, and also you have the name of the airfield where this flight is based. So next I'll show you the production track. So this is the production track. Now when the Germans manage to bomb a city or a radar station, you're going to mark it off on here. So let's just say, for instance, Glasgow has been bombed, it's been knocked out. You put one of these counters, knocked out counters, onto Glasgow, and you can see that that's been knocked out. If a bomber fails to knock out its target but it got 1 hit, you'd put a number 1 bomb, or you put a number 2. And the reason you do that is because in the first phase of the game, each turn, these are production points, and you add these up, and this is the amount of dice you can roll to attempt to repair damaged aircraft and repair radar and airfields. You can't repair a city once it's been bombed, obviously. So you would add up all of these numbers and then roll that amount of dice, which I'll show you later. So that is the production track. Let's go and look at the German tracks. So for the Germans, you get 3 of these tracks. Luftflotte 3. And again, they get a combat ready for their cards. They get A, B and C flight, and they get these fuel at the top. So whenever a German bomber or fighter moves, they have to use a fuel token. So these fuel tokens are laid out, 3 at the start of the game, and then when they move, they will remove one of these. And then also mission cards are placed here in the current mission. So the reason the Germans don't have a damage box is because any damaged fighters, shot down fighters, go into a box on the main board. Okay, let's have a look at the cards. Okay, so the game revolves around these playing cards. As you can see here, we've got a Spitfire, Hurricane, a Blenheim, Spitfire and a Hurricane. Now these are small playing cards. These are not standard size playing cards, but they fit the job and they serve their purpose. Now on a card you can see on the left hand side is a number 4. with some ammo in the background. That is how many dice this card rolls. And then down the bottom, a 4 is how much damage he can take. And obviously it belongs to 12 group. For the Germans, their cards are slightly different. So BF 109s, same thing. They can roll 4 dice. They can take 4 damage points. But a bomber, a Heinkel 111, he's only got 1 dice he can roll to fire. He can only take up to 2 damage. And his bomb rating is 2. That's the difference with the bomber cards. They have a bomb rating. So that's the German cards. Nice quality. I would like them to be a little bit bigger, but still nice. Okay, let's look at some of the aircraft in the game. Now, the aircraft in this game, the plastic models, has been a big talking point when it was released. Now, I don't think they're too bad at all. They have been remoulded because the first batch apparently were not very good at all. So here we have a Heinkel 111, if I can get it to focus. And to me it looks pretty good. There is a little bit of the wings sloping down, but this is not a detailed model. This is a model that just serves the purpose of being on the board and moving to your location. So I don't think it's too bad at all. Here we've got a BF 110. Again, look pretty good to me. No problems. I have heard some people say, oh, you know, they don't fit on the flight stand too well. Well, I've had no problems. They don't seem to be, I mean, if you picked it like that, it would come off. But when I moved it about on the board, it's been fine. And then obviously for the British, you've got your Hurricanes. We can get that to focus, can we? Yeah, you've got your Hurricanes. Not bad at all. And then the famous Spitfire. No problem at all. You could paint these up to make them look really pretty, but that's down to personal, you know, a personal thing if you want to do that or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through how combat works, how the turn works really, and then I'll come back with my final thoughts. So before a game starts, you're going to assign a mission card to each flight of the Germans. So you can see here this mission is to Exeter, and you need 3 hits to knock out your target. Now, the Luftflotte, you have 3 Luftflotte groups. So you have Luftflotte 2, Luftflotte 3 and Luftflotte 5. In Luftflotte 2 you have 3 flights, in Luftflotte 3 you have 3 flights, and then finally Luftflotte 5 has 1 flight. And all of these flights are assigned a mission, and you keep that mission secret from the other player. You don't show the other player. If you're playing solo like I do, then I just have them face up. You can see where they're going. So that's the first thing you do. Then you will assign your flights 3 cards. So for the RAF, you'll take all the flights for each group. So for 12 group, you get all the cards. You will then shuffle them and assign 3 for each flight. So you put 3 cards in each box, and you do that for all the groups. The rest of the cards remaining in that group you put on the combat ready chart box. Then the first part of the game would be to move the turn track, so the turn track goes on to number 1. Then you move into the actual first phase of the game. Now the first phase of the game is production repairs, but in the first turn there's nothing to repair. Nothing's been bombed, nothing's been attacked, so you pretty much skip that phase. Then the next part would be German mission assignment, but we've already talked about that. Then you go into squadron alert phase, and the squadron alert phase is where you assign your flights, which we just talked about. So you're going to assign your 3 cards to each box in each group. So once you've done that, the Germans start with their movement. So a German pilot or bomber plane can move 5 spaces. So you can move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you can move in any direction. So you can move 5 spaces. Now every time you do this, you have to take off a fuel counter from your track. So you have 3 fuel counters. Every time you make a movement, you have to remove this. So we're moving 5 spaces, we remove that token. That token then lets us move 5 spaces. Now, the big thing here, once you move into a radar space, that is these radar pointing out into the sea here, once a German plane moves onto that, the British can then decide to intercept the German bombers, and that's a decision the British player needs to make, and the German player will say, do you want to intercept? And the British player will either say yes or no. If he says yes, if he has any flights that can get in that space, now British have a movement of 3, then he can intercept. So let's say this guy was here, he can move 1, 2 and 3 into the same box, and then an intercept marker is placed in that box, and that will be an intercept combat. There's 2 combats in the game. There's intercept and dogfight, and they are very different from each other, so we'll cover that in a minute. Now, if the British player said he didn't want to intercept, the German bomber just carries on with the rest of his movement. Simple as that. So it's not always a good idea to intercept because you can have heavy losses. So the other thing with movement is if a German player has used 1 fuel token and he has 2 fuel tokens left, he can burn both of those fuel tokens and move up to 10 spaces. So if you had to get up to Glasgow, that would be something you'd want to do. But the penalty for doing that is once you've attempted to bomb your target, getting back home, you could potentially lose a lot out of your squadron. But it helps you to get to your target if it's quite far away. So the Germans would do their movement, the British would try to intercept or not intercept, then it goes into the British movement. So the British get to move 3 spaces, and at the start of the game, the planes are going to be assigned to their airfields. So what you can do with the British, if you haven't intercepted, if you move into the same box as a German bomber, that will be a dogfight. So for instance, this guy here, he's moving 1, 2 into the same box as that Heinkel. That is then a dogfight. So you put a dogfight marker next to them, and that, once we get round to the dogfight phase, that will be a dogfight. You carry on moving your guys. Now you're not going to want to move everyone. You might want guys protecting airfields, etc. But once you've done that, let's just quickly talk about, you can not fly, the Germans cannot fly into a space that has an RAF, that has a Spitfire or Hurricane. So this guy couldn't go into that space, he has to go around, or around this way. And any movement in the same, finishes in the same square, will become a dogfight. Now, after a dogfight, in the next round, if these 2 are still in the same space, you're free to move out of that space. It's no problem. So that's the basics of movement. Let's have a look at how combat works. Okay, so an intercept combat, let's have a look at that. We've got 11 Group D, and we've got Luftflotte A from Group 3. And they're going to fight a intercept combat. So what we do is we grab our 3 cards from Group D, in Group 11 D. So we've got 3 cards, and if we look at those cards, we've got a Spitfire, a Hurricane and a Hurricane. So we put those to one side. The Germans take their 6 cards from their flights, because the Germans get 6 cards, and then they choose 3. So they choose 3, and then when I play solo, I draw these random. So, draw 3 cards, you turn them all over. So they have a Heinkel 111, BF 110, and a BF 109. Oh, that's pretty good for the Germans. So everyone lays their cards out. Let's move them so you guys can see. Let's move. Okay, so I've sorted the cards out. Now, what you do is you total up the amount of dice each side has. So for the Germans, they have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And they get to roll 8 dice. For the British, we're going to get to roll 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So each side rolls their dice. Now the dice in this game are interesting. So you can see you've got a German cross, a rondelle, and 2 blank sides. So the RAF have the white dice and the Germans have the black dice. So what happens, you total that up and you roll your dice. So let's roll them here. Roll your dice, and then you take any hits. So we count up the German crosses, which we've got 4. Then we count up the rondelles for the RAF, 2. So we have to assign this damage. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 points of damage to assign to the Germans. So the red is the damage they can take. So we could use 4 against the BF 109s. The German player decides this, so 4 will knock that squadron of BF 109s out, or he could knock out both of these cards because 2 and 2 makes 4, but then he's lost both his bombers. So, well, sorry, a BF 110 is not a bomber. So he wants to keep his bomber, so he's going to knock out the BF 109. Now the BF 109 goes up to the top left of the board, and at the end of the game, you're going to count for victory points any shot down squadrons. Then the British player has to assign 2 points of damage. Now, if you look here, the difference is, even though they're higher than a 2, in an Intercept Combat, you have to assign 2 hits to a card, and this card will be gone. That's in a dogfight, it's different, but that's how powerful it is. So that Hurricane would be removed, and that goes to your damaged aircraft box on your track. So RAF flights can always be repaired and come back. And you only roll once in an Intercept Combat. That's it. It's quick and brutal. So that would be the Intercept Combat over. You remove the Intercept marker and carry on with any other Intercept combats. Now, for a dogfight, it's different. So let's say we've got our 2 planes. They're going to have a dogfight. We again grab our 3 cards for the British, and their hand is all Hurricanes here. So they've got 3 Hurricanes. So they keep that face down. And the Germans draw 6 cards. And they will normally have 6 cards to start off with in their flight box. And what they do is they keep these face down. And then you're going to choose 1 card for each side and do a combat. So the British lay down a Hurricane like that. The Germans lay down their first plane, and it's BF 109s. So it's 3 dice for the RAF and 4 dice for the Germans. So we roll 3 dice for the RAF, and we're looking for German crosses. Wow. So we rolled 3 German crosses. That's good. The Germans roll 4 dice looking for rondelles. and they've rolled 1 rondelle. Now, this is where the difference is in a dogfight. Whoever has the majority of hits is the losing side, and their squadron is potentially going to be shot down. So the British will not come to any harm this turn because the Germans have taken more hits. But the hits need to equal or go over their damage number. So you need a 4 or more. We've only got 3 hits. And in this situation, both of these cards are returned to their flight boxes. So they return to their flight boxes, and then the RAF player lays another Hurricane, and the German lays down his next card. Exactly the same scenario. Now, if we did get 4 or more, this card would be shot down and they're out the game. If it was the other way round and the Germans managed to get 3 rondelles and the Germans had only taken 2 hits, then the RAF have the majority of hits. It equals their damage rating. They've been shot down. They go into the damage aircraft box on their group track. And that's how dogfights work. Now, the other thing about dogfights, if we shot this Bf 109 down, this card stays in play. So the Germans put another card in. And then if we shot this down, he then becomes an ace. And you get this token, an ace token. And next combat he's in, they get to roll 1 extra dice, which is kind of cool. Now, you can only fight 2 consecutive combats. This guy is then returned to his flight box, not the damage box because he's not been damaged, the flight box. So we return him to the flight box and then bring in another card, our last card, and the Germans bring in theirs. And again, it's a Bf 109. Now, these are all look like they're all Bf 109s. If you have a Heinkel, there's a good chance the Heinkel is going to get shot down because he's only got 1. But remember, these dice, you can do damage to yourself, so it's not always guaranteed. So that's the 2 different combats in the game. Intercept combat, where everyone lays out their cards and you roll the dice and you have to assign that damage throughout the squadron. In a dogfight, you're either going to be shot down or returned to your flight box. Nice, simple, elegant way of handling combat, I think. Okay, so let's look at bombing. How are targets bombed in the game? So, let's say Coventry is our target. Now, he's fought some dogfights. He's got through to Coventry. Now, when he moves into that space, he looks at his mission card, sees it's Coventry. He lays this token down, a bombing token. Places it there. If anyone moves in, you would fight a dogfight first, and then you would conduct bombing run after any dogfights. And how this is done, he takes all the cards from his flight. So where is he? Let's just find this guy here. So he takes all his flights and he counts up his bombing numbers. So these are the right hand, and you can see the silhouette behind. So they got 1, 2, so that's 3, and a Bf 109 doesn't provide anything. So he's going to get to roll 3 dice. Now normally there's 6 cards. So just for this example, I've used 3 cards there. So he's going to roll 3 dice, and he's looking for rondelles to score damage on his target. Rolls the dice, he scored 1. Now if he scores 3, he's knocked out Coventry. And Coventry would receive a knocked out marker on their gaming track. And also I like to just put a marker on the map to show that that has been destroyed. Now, if he only got 1, a number 1 token is placed in Coventry on the track. So 1. If he got 2 hits, you'd place a 2 on the track. So you always need 3 hit to knock out a city. Now for an airfield or a radar, you only need one. But the difference being, a radar and an airfield can be repaired, but a city cannot be repaired. So this is the production track like I showed you, and I'm going to show you how this works. So after the bombing has taken place, bombers will attempt to get home, which I'll show you in a minute. Then you will get round to the next turn, and the first thing you do is attempt to repair airfields and radars. Now, what you do is you count the numbers in the box. So here, these are the production points, so we're going to add them up. So we've got 1, 2, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We get to roll 9 dice. So we roll our dice. Any rondels means we can repair some stuff. So with 1, we can repair a airfield or a radar system. With another one, we can take an aircraft from the damaged aircraft box on our group track and put that back into the combat ready section. So we could leave that radar destroyed and use the 2 rondels to bring back 2 damaged aircraft. Good idea. Now you get here, you can see that Coventry, which we took out, that is not counted, so you don't count that up, so they're going to be at a minus. So they add their numbers up, they're not going to get as many production points as they should have, and as the game goes on, this will get worse. So pretty simple, and you do that for each group. Now if a group doesn't have any damage, you can declare that 1/3 of their points is going to be allocated to another group, which is a cool feature. So quickly, if I come down here, if you use these rondels, you can bring this damaged aircraft from here, you can put it back in the combat ready, give that a good shuffle, and you're ready to go. So every time a RAF plane is lost, they go into the damaged aircraft box. Okay, so what I'll quickly show you now is how bombers attempt to get back, and then I'll sum up my thoughts. Okay, so once a bomber has dropped his bombs, he's going to head home. Now, there's a few differences here. If a bomber has no fuel markers left on his track, then he is going to roll 1 dice for each bomber squadron card he has in his squadron. So let's say these are our cards. He would roll 1 dice for this bomber squadron, and that's it. So he's not going to roll any for these because these are BF 109s. So he rolls 1 dice here, like so, and it's blank. Now that means this bomber gets home safely and he's put back in the flight. If he rolled a German cross, he is destroyed and put into the destroyed box at the top of the board. If the bomber has 1 or 2 fuel markers, the bomber squadron cards have plenty of fuel, so they don't need to roll, they just return home safely. Now, if you have fighters in that squadron and there's no fuel markers, you're going to roll 2 dice for each aircraft. So you would take the first card and roll 2 dice, they're fine, and the next card, they're fine. But if you rolled any German crosses, that would be shot down and put in the damage box again. Now, once a flight comes back, they will return to their flight box. So you place the model on the flight box, and then you will assign another mission card, and then you can reinforce by drawing more cards, etc. I won't show you that now because this video will be far too long. So the basics of the game are the Germans are going to have their missions, their targets, they're going to move through, you're going to try and intercept them. You don't have to, but if they're intercepted, you can move fighters if they're within range. Then the Germans continue with the rest of their movement. Then the RAF will move into contact with any dogfights. Then the Germans will go into bombing runs if they're over their targets, and then they will attempt to get home. Now the neat thing is this production point and trying to repair, and whether I should I use this card or should I use that card? What if that airfield's knocked out? If an airfield's knocked out and you're into the next turn, you haven't been able to fix an airfield, then if a flight's assigned to that airfield, he has to return to his combat group, to his chart. So there's a lot of decisions in this game, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think it's a great little game. There are about 4 or 5 scenarios that change things, change mission cards. Nice little twist on it. This is a thoroughly enjoyable game. So we'll wrap up here, and I'll just give a final overview. So there we have it, a look at the Battle of Britain by Richard Borg. I think it's a great game. Now I've been playing this solitaire, and it worked really well because of the card system. You're able to draw German fighters without looking at the cards, etc. So really easy to do. It's quite a simple game. Once you get your head around it, it's very simple. You just follow the procedures. But once you've played a few games, you really start to understand it's more about that repairing and protecting airfields and trying to keep the momentum on your side. Now, one thing I didn't touch on, at the end of a game, you're going to total up the amount of lost German fighters, the amount of lost damaged aircraft to the RAF, how many mission cards, the successful mission cards the Germans have, and so on. And then whoever has the most victory points is the winner. The rule book as well is really well laid out, full colour, really easy to follow. So would I recommend this game? I'd recommend it if you're into World War II, air combat, definitely. Production values are great, few little things on the planes, but to be honest, you're not really concentrating on them too much. The other thing is the cards. That's the only negative thing I have to say about it, is the size of the cards are just a bit too small for me. I think they could have been a little bit bigger, but it doesn't have a negative impact on the game. I thoroughly enjoyed this and will continue to play it. So there we go then, guys. Battle of Britain by Richard Borg and the Plastic Soldier Company. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.